keeps telling me orientation is locked. It's like, okay. Okay. I think I can see that. Oh my gosh. Okay. Hi, Oddfoot. All right. First ever live video. Okay. This is I just did this for the thumbnail. We got video rentals. I was just wanting to talk about like video rental stores and maybe draw a couple of things. Because like video rental stores were so weird. A lot of people talk about how cool they were and like all the stuff we're missing. But I feel like a lot of people talk about the heyday of video rental stores from like the early 80s and even up to the mid 90s. But like video rental stores were around in some cases to like 2010, and they got like weirder and weirder and weirder. We had one video rental store that literally started selling hardware and became a video rental hardware store. But like there's all sorts of crazy stuff to do with video rental stores. So even after they stopped renting just VHS, um, even when they were back in the day when they were renting VHS, they would rent them in these like clear boxes, but they had exorbitant late fees. I say exorbitant, like it was really something. I remember somebody owed $300 for having a movie out for like 2 weeks or something because it was a new release. And it's just really, let me move that over, really something. I guess they were big business. Actually, you know what's really funny is when I was growing up, my best friend, his father owned a video rental store. And so he worked at a video rental store. Ooh, I really messed up the perspective on this label. Um, like all through high school. We did not rent movies from his dad's VHS store. Like I don't remember. I mean, like, obviously he knew something that I didn't. But yeah, we did not rent movies from him. I think a lot of younger people probably, yeah, possibly remember renting like video games. That was still pretty popular, like up into the, gosh, I wonder when that stopped. Like my guess is it didn't stop, right? Like there are probably still places today where you can still rent VHS. Yeah, there used to be pinball machines. Let's see. One thing I remember very vividly as a kid is they had these machines for like candy. You can get like a candy dispenser. I forget what they're called. You put in a quarter and it dispenses candy. And I remember they were these really cheap looking ones, and the video store had them, and the barber shop had them, and that was the only place that had these like really cheap looking like stack of plastic vending machines, coin operated vending machines. And they were so strange. Like, even as a kid, I was like uncomfortable about them. They felt like the cheap versions of the ones that were in the grocery store. And it would just have like loose peanuts in it, like a big plastic red top. Oh yeah, is there still a big one in Ohio? Ohio Rizzler Skibbity? Is that why everyone's always talking about Ohio? Because there's a really great VHS store there? That would make sense. Yeah, there'd be like they would always have the candy and there's you know what I think every VHS store had that especially as they got less and less popular and they were supported by like predatory late fees and selling hardware was what is it? They just had like some old guy who hung out there all the time. This is not straight. This is my first time like drawing live on the camera. It's hard to get my head not in the way of the camera. It's hard to keep my head out of the way. Maybe this is the problem. Just before I render this out, I'm just doing a little sketch to make sure I'm not doing anything dumb. Clean this up a little bit. Got really. All right. Yeah, the two places that always felt super old fashioned to me were like VHS stores and like bowling alleys, and they both would have just like these older men like hanging around all the time who like seemed to know what they were doing, but like also like you thought like, oh, this is the only place that they talk to people. This is when I was a little kid. I don't know what it would be like. There must be places like that now. And then when I get older, I'll have to find a place like that to hang out at and be the guy who maybe an art store. That's what I'll do. What should I put in these? Oh, I forgot they have this like the coin operated mechanism in the front with the handle you spin. Let's work on this one. This one will be 50 cents. You have to put in 2 quarters. And you spin this. Oh, the rewind. So, yeah, I do remember it being a big deal to rewind. We had a VHS player that as soon as it was done playing the video, it would go all the way to the end and it would stop and rewind. So, like, it was not, we didn't have to remember to rewind. It made it like much easier for us. I don't remember what these vending machines look like in the front. I've just drawn like a big of course my friggin' neuroatypical but like remembers the mechanism for turning and like how you put quarters in, but not just like the general look of it. That that checks so out. That checks out so much. I remember one had cashews. Oh, you know what? I'm like remembering when my grandmother brought me to the VHS store when I was a little kid, and I would get strawberry shortcake videos. Strawberry shortcake, Voltron. What's the other one? It had like Lion-O, Panthera. Oh, Thundercats. Thundercats. Ho! I almost. Yeah. And then, like, I feel like even in pop culture, you're either making fun of that guy who's like sitting at the video store all the time, or you are like talking about them when they're in their heyday. But I guess video stores are one of those jobs. So I worked at a place when we sold business cards, and a large part of my job would just to be to sit there and wait for somebody to come in and order business cards. We sold other stuff too, but that like I was there to take orders. Like I was there to fulfill the orders also, but that was less important. Some of the orders I didn't fulfill at all. They just like got sent off to somebody in another office. But like we needed the location to keep customers. And so like I remembered stories of people who had worked there before me talking about how they were open until 11 p.m. for some weeks because like people would leave the bars and they would come over and be like, I have a new idea for a business. I need to order business cards right away. And then they'd order business cards for like the idea that them and their friend had just had in the bar. And like that was a decent amount. That was enough business that they paid somebody to be there until 11 p.m. 5 days a week. Like, what a world. Now Vistaprint gets all that money. People drunk order business cards online. You don't have to drunk order in person. Yeah, so even after Netflix was a thing and you could get DVDs by mail relatively easily, that was only like the people who are very good at planning and who didn't want to watch something today, right? So there was still like lots of people. If you and your friends were hanging out or you suddenly had to like babysit or something like that, you didn't know what to do, you could still go to the you would still go to the VHS store, the video rental place and rent a video. This is so Sigma. Oh my gosh. I don't I'm an old person. So the only Sigma I know, actually I don't even know it. I was going to draw the Greek character for Sigma, but I don't even know what that is. Is it? No, this is I really don't know. I have no idea. Is it this? I don't think it's that. I'm gonna hide that. Yeah, and then like every video store I had ever been in to varying degrees would have um like a room behind the curtain. And that like it was so strange because I was a little kid still mostly when video stores were around. I mean, I was a teenager also, but like it was definitely really strange to have yeah, VHS store. Summation. To like have that whole room where you were like, oh, that's adults only. Like that is such a strange thing to just be in the place where you go to get your like fix for the Lion King. It would in the video store that I went to. Let me see. How much space do I have? I can go from here to about here. Okay, so in the video store that I went to, it sort of looked like here was the counter. And then over here was the register, the computer that kept track of how many late fees you owed them and if you were allowed to rent a movie. Because if you had too many late fees, they wouldn't let you rent a movie or a video game most of the time. In my case, I rented a lot of little NES games. I loved NES games. I'm getting distracted, but I'm drawing an NES game now. Um, yeah, I'm just drawing an NES game. Mm-hmm. Oh, did you find your favorite movie from a video rental store? That's crazy. I didn't know. You found your favorite movie from Mike Tyson at the that doesn't make sense. Huh? Why Mike Tyson, odd bud? Oh, Mike Tyson's Punch Out, maybe the NES game. Anyway, NES game. Oh, it's hard to see. I'll draw better. I'll draw darker. Yeah, so you had the let me just so you had the counter, and then below the counter would be candy, just like in like a CVS or something. There'd be like racks of candy bars and stuff. And then um, up here would be like popcorn and like a big sign advertising like specials and like big boxes of like microwave popcorn. I think Jiffy Pop, you know, and then like only $3 or whatever. It was so expensive. $3 was a lot back then. So to rent a movie was like $5 or sometimes like three for 10, I think that was, and like $10 then is like $20 now. So that page, a toothbrush, I missed it. The person would stand here. This is where the weird old guy was. I'm old. Actually, in our store, it was two old women who were there 100% of the time. And they were there like, I think until I was like 25. Ever since I was a very little kid until I was 25. Very nice. Maybe I just thought they were weird because they were old and I was very young, like so many young kids do. Oh, yeah, I see it now. A toothbrush. And then up here, they would have like a monitor playing a movie that they were trying to convince you to get to rent. And it was an old school monitor. It was like huge. I was always scared it was going to fall down. It was just, I say a monitor. It was just like a living room TV, just like a giant living room TV that somebody had like built a stand for above the counter. Come to think of it, maybe that's why there was always weird people hanging out in the video store, is because they could watch videos for free. They could watch newer movies for free. Here's Dolores. Yeah. So you have the candy down here. You'd have the register with the popcorn over here, bags of popcorn. Sometimes, oh, and then here would be the, have I moved over enough? No. Over here would be the vending machines. I'm just going to draw like a box because I drew the vending machines before, poorly, but you know. And then like just right here would be this door with like the beads hanging down. Like the beaded curtain door. So there was an anti-theft thing at Blockbuster. This was the main video store, the weirdo video store I went to as a kid and then also as a teenager when like I was going by myself. And that would be like how that worked is a little bit different. But I can show how that worked. Yeah, and it was just like so strange that basically right behind the counter, right next to the counter where everyone had to go to like take out their movies. Oh, and then the kids' movies were like along this opposite wall. This is where the kids' movies were. Like, oh yeah, like Dolores is looking at the kids' movies. They're like right over here on a shelf, like it was two shelves. It was one behind the other. That's where the kids' movies were. Kids' movies. Come on, brain. All right. And then the video games were eventually moved here. And I don't know what they did with the kids' movies. I was no longer a kid. So, like, for 15 years, from being a kid to then renting video games, I always went to the same two shelves. Now that's where they have screws and hoses. So the same store that used to be a video store eventually just became a hardware store. It was sort of like an evolution. All right. I'm trying to think. Oh, I can show. So the way Blockbuster worked with its like what's it called? Oh, I remember most of there would be like a whole rack displaying so many. Oh yeah, so many copies of one movie. Yeah, so I think that's Blockbuster. Um and yeah, Blockbuster would have whole shelves of the one movie. It would be so weird. Like the ones I went to, they would just have the copies. They would have the boxes of the movies that they had out on the shelf, right? And if somebody picked up one box and brought it to the counter, and they would rent out the movie that they had, and if they had another copy of that movie, they would just put the box back out on the shelf. And they would do that until they were out of copies. And then the last person to rent the movie would bring the box back and they would keep it behind the counter until one of the copies came back. So with Blockbuster, if the entrance and the exit was the same, which It very often was, but not always. You would like walk in, right? This would be the entrance, and there'd be the counter would be right here. This would be the counter. This would be, there would be registers like here and here, and sometimes there'd be one here. And then there'd be like a wall here. You couldn't go. Maybe this is where they had the beaded room. I don't remember. But there'd be shelves or a wall here. You couldn't go there. And then you'd walk in through, there'd be like a metal detector here. Uh, it was like a metal detector. It was like an anti-theft device. And you'd come in, you'd choose your movie, you'd find it on the shelves or your video game. Mostly from Blockbuster. I rented when we were like on vacation. So I saw bunches of Blockbusters like all over. I don't remember if they were franchised because they all seemed so different. Yeah, you'd come in, you'd choose your movie, and then you'd go pay at the counter. You'd show them your Blockbuster card, which just looked like a laminated card that had like your name and your license number on it. It was like we did not know anything about informational security. It'd be like Blockbuster, Blockbuster. Oh, there we go. And it would look like 35 millimeter film. That was the joke. I mean, that was even though everything was on tape, they were still like, movies are art. It's a film. Uh, and then they would take your movie after you paid for it. Because they did often have the copies, not of the new movies, but of all the other movies. They would just have the regular, like, actual movies or DVDs, like, out on the shelves. So you'd bring that up here, they would ring you out, and then they would take that movie and put it here. And then you would be like, oh, okay. And you'd walk out and you would pick it up and you would leave. Eventually, Blockbuster did this thing where if you didn't return the movie, instead of charging you like $300 in late fees, if your late fees accumulated to a point where you could have bought the movie for less than the late fees, then you paid the late fees and you kept the movie. So like this happened to me once, and I had really thought I had returned the dang movie, but it was in the tray of my laptop. And I never used my laptop like DVD tray CD player for anything but for watching movies. And so I got Netflix, like Netflix came out on streaming, right? And so like I got streaming, and a couple of weeks before I got streaming, I had been on a trip and I went to Blockbuster in some place upstate New York, and I got like a anime movie. I forget I think it was Cowboy Bebop the movie. And then I thought I returned it. And like for whatever reason, I never got the mail or the email, because at that point they had email telling me that I had like missed the deadline, and then they charged my card for a late fee, which meant I now own the movie. And it was so weird because I called them up like so worried. Bebop? Bebop, not Bebomb. And then they were like, no, we don't have anything about that. And then I found out it was just I had actually bought the dang movies from them. I would have not spent the $35 on that had I known. I returned to them the empty case is what had happened. All right. This was a good first try. I think I'll have a list of things I'd like to draw next time. But yeah, those video rental places, man, they could be they could cost you a lot. Next time, draw a picture of my face. Thank you. My face basically looks like this. Lots of beard, lots of eyebrows, lots of hair. Big dumb eyes, big dumb nose. Tiny little ears. They used to be bigger, but my head grew into them. When people say your head'll grow into them, they mean it. That's that me, my face. Oh. Maybe next time I will draw the lyrics of a song, skipping things like in and the. No, I'll draw lyrics of a song starting with like phrases. And then if you can guess the song, we'll see who can guess the song. So like that's that me espresso could be like That's that me espresso. Right? That's you could be working late because you're a singer. What would that be? That would be like there'd be a moon and a microphone. And I guess a singer. Let's go. Oh, crud. I missed an opportunity to do a sewing machine. Shoulders. People need shoulders. Don't just draw their arms. People need shoulders. Otherwise, how do they move their arms? La la la. Whoops. I'm all the way over on the edge here. This is somebody working late because they're a singer. I guess if I just tell you what I'm drawing, then you can't guess the song. But that's all right. It's not for that today. Yeah, I guess I probably should have done working late and then I'm a singer. Because working late, you could do like somebody on their at their desk, right? Like feeling dreary and down. And it's like, where's, oh, I know. I know how to solve this problem. I assume clocks in office buildings are all digital now. I don't know. I don't know why this is a small child. A very sad child working very late. I guess I've heard homework is really bad now. I didn't know it was this bad. Go to sleep, my man. Also, you don't have to wear a suit to do your homework. All right. I don't know the lyrics to this song, so I've just kind of gotten myself into uh oh, I did one before, right? We can do that. That's it. How does the Nintendo controller work? Something like this. Switch it up like, oh, switch. That's different. I should have known. Switch is like, so I don't play the Switch. So I don't know the joystick configuration very well. My guess is something like this. And then these are joysticks. This is a rough approximation. I just remembered. I drew a Switch for somebody once. And I had to get a picture of one. Switch it up like Nintendo. Switch it up like Nintendo. The old NES looked like this. We'll put that above the, I'll put it below the Switch. I think I have room here. We'll put it here. So my first car I got from my grandfather, and it was this really old Buick Century from the 80s. And I always thought, like, oh man, it reminds me of the Nintendo. It's like big and boxy and gray. And like it feels like it has a lot of like the same like stylish box aesthetics that the Nintendo had, the NES that I really loved as a kid. Like the strange like I don't know, like the way the lines where like the accents were red, so it was the same color palette. Like the way the lines looked. I don't remember where the power button was. I guess here, power reset, little light. There's like vents on the side or something. Anyway, I found out years later, that's a Nintendo, that it was it was literally designed after the Buick. So like I was right to think like, oh, this car reminds me of the Nintendo Entertainment System. There was when Nintendo came to the US, like the old Famicom looked more like I don't like more like a Super Nintendo does nowadays. It was something like this. It was like a couple of buttons, and there was like a place where the controllers sat in the front, like a controller cradles. And they were permanently attached to the machine, which was a strange choice, I think. And it had like an open slot, just like the Super Nintendo, if you know that system, where you would put the cartridges in. And because video games were considered like a toy in the US and it had this image of being a toy, and they kind of wanted to get away from that, they were like, we can't Like it's already going to be sold in toy stores. Although I think they did try to fight that. Um, we don't want it to look like a toy. People think it's cheap. And if people think it's cheap, they won't get it. They won't take it seriously. They won't want it. They won't get it. And so, in order to make it look better and look more expensive, they sold it not as the family Famicom, which is family computer. Um, they sold it as the Nintendo Entertainment System, the E in um, NES, just like Chuck E. Cheese stood for entertainment. Uh, I never thought about that. Nintendo Entertainment System and Chuck Charles Entertainment Cheese. They have the same, maybe they have the same grandfather. Entertainment John Jones. Um, and the entertainment, they wanted it to be an entertainment system and they wanted it to be big and boxy. So it looked like all the other like VHS and uh, cable boxes and stuff that people were already comfortable like putting under their uh, televisions. And they wanted to be like, this is another one of those things, just a thing you put under your television. It is not, it is not a child's toy. It is a family entertainment system that anyone can use. And I think for a large part, that more or less worked. I mean, we know it worked. Nintendo's one of the largest companies in the world now, right? But um, it worked. They sold entertainment systems. My grandmother, who was in her 60s at the time, is that true? Yeah, was in her 60s at the time or late 50s. She got one. This is a VHS player. If you This is where you put in the tapes. There's like a little door that came down. You pop in the tapes. Literally everybody's VCR blinked 12 because they usually were like only had these buttons and like maybe one or two other ones on the front that you could use to like program them and record things and do everything. And because of that, it was like very confusing. It uh, you had to like know exactly how to do it for every individual VCR. They had pretty obscure users manuals, and you'd have to like dig it out every time your power went out to figure out how to set the time. And it was totally extraneous because like most people had the VCR, but they also had a cable box, and like the cable box got its time from the cable company, and it told you directly, and that was simple, and it was literally just the time and like a sensor for the remote. And some of them had this little like card that stuck out, and that's how like they knew how much what service you got or whatever. And so that was always the correct time because it was set by the cable company and you didn't have to worry about it. And then like you also had the VCR. So like who cared if that was blinking 12? And then even if you didn't have a cable box and you were still doing broadcast television, we did for a long time. We got two channels, but that was enough. Um, you could change it to one of those channels, and often they would have the time here or like somewhere um, in between programs, or at least when the news came on. Our TV looked at this. It was very square. It had a knob, and you could change it to 13 different positions, off, one, and 13, which I thought was so weird because my only other experience with knobs and dials was that like of, and then there's like a speaker here, and this was all wood paneled. And then there's like wood paneling down here. And then there's like a tiny TV screen. This was the TV I played NES on. And the NES was like this big on top of it. It was gigantic. Bump ba-dum, bump ba-dum, bump ba-dum, bump ba-dum, bump 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 ba-dum, bump. Bump ba-dum, bump ba-dum, bump ba-dum, ba-dum. I don't know how to draw Mario. Never learned. Bump ba-dum, bump ba-dum, bump. All right. Yeah, Yoshi. I'll draw Yoshi. This is me drawing Yoshi from memory. And I have aphantasia, so wish me. I'm going to take a sip of tea. All right. I know he has a saddle, and I know he's shaped vaguely like this. I cannot remember the tail. I'm going to go with yes, because that seems more interesting. And then one thing I specifically remember about Yoshi is he's born with a saddle, which I always thought, which is why I remember it, because it's so friggin' strange. Or he has his shell on his back is in the shape of a saddle. If that's the lore, that would make sense if that was the lore. And then is he just like a big nose? I'm drawing Dino from Flintstones. I bet you his eye. He has a giant eye because Nintendo. I think his nose must be rounder. He probably has an ear. What is Mario holding on to? That does not look right, but I'm running with it. And then I don't know what his legs are. His legs boots? Like booties? Does he have 4 legs or 2 legs? I mean, he must have 4 legs in theory. No ear. Okay, I'll take the ear out. I'll take the ear out. Instead of an ear, I'll give him eyelashes. And a nose, a mouth. He has arms. What the heck? Like arms? And then are his feet here in the middle? Oh my god, that looks right. Okay, okay. Okay, let's see. Arms. So he does have 2 legs. Little dinosaur arms. Or is he spotted? I think he has spots. I'm moving his eye to the front of his head. Spikes. He has spikes. That doesn't seem right. Where would he have spikes? I messed up. He definitely looked more like Yoshi before I did whatever I did. Oh. Stegosaurus spikes. I just remembered some people get in trouble for singing copyrighted music on for humming the tune. Drowsy Yoshi. Whoa. Let's try again. More cheeky. Like, the top of his head is all eye. This is terrible. This cannot be right. Okay, one thing that sometimes makes huge eyes look better is a huge pupil. Okay, that's a little bit better. Oh, all eyelid. Okay, I can do that. It always just looks like tired Yoshi. Oh, big cheeks. Cheeky, like he has cheeks, not cheeky like he's cheeky. I changed his mouth to make him cheeky. Oh yeah, because sometimes he's Kirbying it up. And then he has he puts his head down, right? And he like I guess I can come over here. Am I on camera? Sort of. I just realized, like, he gets his head all the way against the ground. So that means he must look something like this. With his Mario shell here. Those little hands. I totally forgot he has little hands. What a strange choice. Global. Something like that. That's that me, I'm Yoshi. I'm working late, 'cause I'm late Cretaceous, a dinosaur. Don't take vacations, 'cause they're not invented for a couple million probably. All right. I've gone much longer than I thought I would. Bye bye.